welcome back to another session during the National Disabled Veterans Winter Sports Clinic at Home. And let me welcome and introduce our presenters for this session, Matt, Gus, and Jeff. It's National Disabled Veterans Winter Sports Clinic Equipment 101 Novice to Advanced session. Matt Lucas is a recreation therapist or therapy supervisor and Winter Sports Clinic equipment coordinator who has worked with the Winter Sports Clinic for over 29 years. Gus Taylor joined the Winter Sports Clinic in early 2020 as the equipment coordinator. He is also a recreation therapist and served 5 years as a corpsman in the U.S. Navy. So Jeff Inouye is the ski program director for the Breckenridge Outdoor Education Center and has 27 years of experience as an adaptive ski instructor, including working at the Winter Sports Clinic as a ski instructor for many years. In their session, they will discuss what equipment is right for you to advance your ski skills from a novice to an advanced skier.
All right, so we want to welcome everybody to the virtual Winter Sports Clinic equipment presentation. We're going to be talking about how a beginner skier can get from being a beginner to being as independent as possible. And I want Jeff to introduce himself first, so you guys know who Jeff is.
As Matt said, I've been with the BOEC, the Breckenridge Outdoor Education Center, for 27 years. Been a part of the Winter Sports Clinic for at least 25 or so. And yeah, I've been involved a lot with the equipment and how the new equipment is used, and done clinics with the Winter Sports Clinic for instructors on the different types of equipment and best ways to use them. So yeah, I've been around for a while and have a pretty good handle on the equipment and instruction. So I'm happy to be here, and thanks for having me.
Thank you, Jeff. Gus, can you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Gus Taylor, the equipment coordinator here at the Winter Sports Clinic. And I haven't been around as long as these two.
Okay, so if you guys had the chance to see Adam and Jensen, their testimonials for the Winter Sports Clinic, one of the things that came out of that to me was they had never been up there skiing or snowboarding after their disability. And that's one of the things that we want to show is all the different equipment that we do have. And, you know, we pretty much have anything to help you guys be able to ski, snowboard, you know, anything that you need adaptive that we can do to make your guys' lives better, to make you more independent. So anyway, here's some of the mono skis and bi skis. We have over 155 mono skis and bi skis. Lots of different stand-up equipment, 19 snow sliders, 150 pairs of outriggers, along with all the other adaptive equipment you may need. And this little video kind of shows a little bit about how we go about putting everything together. This is kind of how I feel when Sunday comes around and we get everything out of the equipment we're running around. We've got bootloaders helping us, ski instructors. So it's a wide variety of people, and to put these together. And then the instructors are pushing these down the hill. We got the Tetra ski in the background there for more severe injuries. So, and then you'll see here in a bit, yeah, we're loading all the equipment to go back to Grand Junction. So it's a big process, and we have lots of mono skis and bi skis, and these things, you know, are heavy. So first thing we're going to do is talk a little bit about the bi ski. The bi ski was developed for people who have more balance or stability problems. You know, diagnoses include like spinal cord injury, higher spinal cord injury, stroke, TBI, multiple sclerosis, amputations. And the cool thing is the bi ski was developed in the mid 1980s. The one that you see down here is actually called a sled or toboggan. It was made by Mountain Men at the very first. And you can see the pics that people used to use. They were literally on the ground using this sled or toboggan. Then in around 1986, Mike Miltner built the Milton Biski. And this was very popular back in the late 80s, early 90s. It came with, you can put fixed outriggers in here to keep it from tipping. The fixed outriggers are actually kind of like training wheels on a bicycle. And as you get better, you can take those out and go from there. But we don't use these two anymore. Here's another Freedom Factory vintage biski, we call it. This came out and it had articulator. The articulator is the thing down here. You could put the skis in different positions as far as being able to make yourself go slower. Like you hear people say a wedge or pizza, you could do that. And then it had a lift mechanism. You push this and then you push up with your arms with your outriggers to get onto the lift. Here are some of the program biskis that we have now. The Bi-Unique, it sits a little bit lower to the ground, and you can see that they're trying, when this came out in the early 90s, they put this pump on it, this jack, so they could move it up and down and to be able to get onto the lift. And this is one of the more popular biskis that's been around forever. It's the Mountain Man. Pretty much every program in the United States has one of these. They're very popular. They're very durable. Pretty much anyone can ski these. So, and then here are two of the newer models. The Hawk has been out for about 8 years now. You actually can't get this one anymore. It is still good to use to learn how to ski. But the good thing that they came out with then was a lift assist. So you push a little button and it helps you go up. You still have to put some pressure on it, but this helped relieve some of the stress that the instructors had to do, pull them up to get them onto the lift. And then about 4 years ago, Enabling Technologies came out with this biski, and it has a lift assist on it. You can see the foot bucket goes forward and backward. You can angle the seat to your liking. You can also put the skis forward or backwards, depending on how heavy you are. But this really revolutionized the biskis when they came out with this lift assist. And the instructor bars do come off on both of them. So once you get to the point where you're skiing it yourself, you probably want that off. So anyway, Jeff, will you talk a little bit about the progression that somebody who is just beginning goes from being a biskier to being a more independent biskier? Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. So, the progression with the biski is very dependent on a person's ability levels. So there isn't a one progression that is going to necessarily work for every type of biskier. Depending on the person's ability levels, that's going to play a big part in what the progression is to learn to ski or to potentially become independent. And also, obviously, with how the biski is set up. In general, somebody that is using the biski with handheld outriggers, which I'm sure we will actually in this video, you can see that gentleman using handheld outriggers. For someone using those, the general concept is, for all skiers really is, the closer you are to the ground, the easier they are to balance and ski independently. So, for example, this Bi-Unique that's on the screen right now, for someone who's going to be skiing the biski independently with handheld riggers, that's a much easier way to start than to be in a ski that is very high off the ground where it's tougher to balance for somebody, depending again on their ability levels. So that's the basic, with progressions, again, it's going to vary very greatly depending on a person's ability levels. So a lot of folks may use this as a progression to a monoski, which we'll talk about in a minute. And if they have that ability to move into a monoski, then basically what we're going to do is teach them the monoski progression in the biski so that when they do make that move to a monoski, that it'll be a much smoother transition. So, with the bi-ski setup, guys, so the big thing with that is obviously determining what folks need, whether they be handheld outriggers, the fixed outriggers. Some folks will actually use one handheld outrigger and one fixed outrigger, and some folks won't use any outriggers. So again, depending on the person's ability levels, that's how we're going to determine what ski is best for them and what the best progression is for them to again become as independent and do as many things themselves as they can. So with some of the devices that Matt showed earlier, again, a lot of folks start out in either the Bi-Unique or the Mountain Man. Again, the Bi-Unique is a good option for folks that are using handheld outriggers and will be skiing, potentially independently at a certain point. The Mountain Man has more options for folks that might need the fixed outriggers and a handlebar, and someone that has a little less ability to be doing a lot of the steering and speed control things on their own. So as someone progresses, that's when they may move into some of those other mono skis that we showed, like the Dynamique or the Hawk Glide bi-ski, because those ones, again, being a little bit taller and also having a load mechanism, this would potentially enable someone to be more independent, to be able to load themselves onto the chairlift with little or no assistance possibly. And again, be able to basically, the theory is that the taller you are, the more angles you can create for higher level skiers to be able to ski varied terrain, including bumps or powder or steeps. So that's the basic concept with bi-skiing.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. So we want to go on to talking about mono skis. The mono ski was developed for individuals who ski from the seated position, and they should have good upper body strength, balance, and good trunk control. Some of the diagnoses are spinal cord injury, T6 and lower, amputations, TBIs, and others. Mono skiers ski with two outriggers, and when we're talking about the outriggers, as Jeff was saying, these are the outriggers that we're talking about. So I want to give you guys a little bit of an idea of where mono skiing has came from. When we first started, we had 32 of the sleds or toboggans that I showed you in the last few pictures. And then these were a couple of the earliest mono skis. This one down here, it's called a GFL. It actually came over from Germany, and you can see that it looks like it has a leaf spring. It looks like it's a sidecar off of a motorcycle. And so the seating wasn't real good. As you can see in this other one, this was actually developed by a veteran that lived in Delta, Colorado. And we called it the ISOM. And so he made it so you can see the shock absorber. He made this out of the back of his garage. And he also put this little lever here to make it has a screw mechanism to make the rear end go up so he could get onto the lift, which was really a neat idea. But you can see the seating now. Kendra will tell us that seating's probably not going to be proper for the mono skis that we have now. So here are a few of the mono skis. This is a Freedom Factory Revolution and the Yeti from Rad Adventures. And one of the cool things about these is these were one of the first ones to ever have a boot foot, because the other ones that you saw were all put on by bolts. And so you had to bolt it on. Now you could use the conventional binding, as you can see with this boot foot. And the same thing with the Yeti. So that was pretty revolutionary when this all came out. And these were very good program skis and are still used in a lot of programs right now. These are a couple of the mono skis that we're currently using for our program skis. this is a KGB Lynx, and it's very lightweight, very popular amongst people because of the weight, and you can actually pull a screw and you can fold it down, and it travels fairly easily. Um, it's an awesome one to start out to learning how to ski, to monoski. And then this is the new Monique from Enabling Technologies, which they came out with this about 3 years ago. It sits lower to the ground. It looks very similar to the Dynamic, and there's lots of adjustability in it with the foot and the seat. So these two are some of the most popular ones currently. And then the Proshberger's been around for a while, but it's still popular. You can see that this is actually in the upright position to get onto the lift. You push this little mechanism up forward, and then you can lift yourself up, and then the chairlift comes under here and hits the shock, and when you get off, you're in the ski position. And this is a Tempo Access. It's been out for a couple of years. We're actually getting a couple of those. It sits lower to the ground, a great program ski. So we're excited to be getting that. These are some of our our higher level mono skis. The more advanced, the Hydra, you can see very engineered, very well. This is very popular, very good ride. There's the adjustability in it. It's a little bit more difficult just because it is for an advanced skier and you want to get that set. And then, so for a program ski, it's not a great program ski, but it's good for someone who goes from a beginner to moderate to more advanced. So, and then we have the Nissan. The Nissan has been a very popular ski. It was very popular for when for a lot of the Paralympians too. And then here's a Scarver. It's a Tessier unit, and it's kind of the same thing. You push a button here, you can lift this up. And then this is another one by Dynaccess, the Tensor. And the good thing of the Tensor actually has a very good shock absorber and a very good ride. So they're very popular in the United States now. So let me see here. Jeff, so do you want to talk a little bit about going from program mono to some of the more advanced skis?
Sure. So, I'll start with kind of the progression stuff again and then move into the equipment. One thing with a monoski is there is absolutely a progression. Most folks, as Matt mentioned, that skiing monoskis have good upper body strength and upper body balance, good arm strength and things like that. So we can have a progression that most folks will use to teach someone how to monoski. Again, bringing up the point about the height of skis. Some of the better program skis are made a little bit lower to the ground. So say again, the Monique that Matt showed is a little bit lower to the ground. So not quite as intimidating for some folks as far as, sitting up really tall and really having to focus on your balance and things like that. So again, general, idea is that something a little bit lower to the ground is going to be a little bit easier to learn in. And then again, everyone that skis in a monoski is using the handheld outriggers like you see here. So again, the whole point is that these folks can become completely independent and load themselves on and off the chairlift and basically ski any of the terrain out there. As far as the equipment goes, the big thing with the monoskis, as Matt showed, there's a lot of different types. And the bottom line is there is no monoski that is perfect for everybody. And there's not, one person that, say necessarily can ski every single monoski really well. There's a lot of different varieties that also depend on a person's level of injury. So someone that is maybe a little bit higher level paraplegic or spinal cord injury, may do better in something that is a little bit lower to the ground. And then also with the seating position, certain people like to sit in a certain type of position, whether that comes from, say, they might be wheelchair basketball players or tennis players, track athletes, and they do other sports in different types of seating positions. So they're comfortable in different types of seating positions. So some monoskis have the feet a little bit lower than others. So, again, some people that like to sit in more of the position that they sit in their wheelchair may like a ski that has the feet a little bit lower. And other folks, again, might like to have their feet out a little more in front of them. So a lot of the fitting for a monoski is going to be preference of the participant and the way that they like to sit. And then some of it, again, will depend on their level of injury and what might work best for them. So every monoski out there is great, and it's great for certain people, but maybe not so great for others. And that's why we really suggest that folks get out and able to try different types of monoskis when they are in a position where they are somewhat past the point of learning the basic concepts of monoskiing, that they can ski, relatively green or blue terrain independently. And then if they are in the market for looking for their own type of monoski, that they can test out some different monoskis and really be able to focus on the ski and how it works and whether or not it's going to work best for them. Some of the key things like Matt brought up, some skis have a load position where it helps you to get on and off the chairlift, and other skis don't. Again, it's a lot of times a preference thing. Some people like to have a load position to get onto the chairlift, and other folks would rather not deal with that. So that's why, again, we have so many different types of monoskis at the Winter Sports Clinic, and encourage people to be able to get out and try different types of skis before they start looking into purchasing their own. But again, the more likely types for beginning monoskiers are either the Revolutions and the Yetis that Matt showed, the Monique, the KBG Lynx is another great beginning type of monoski. And a lot of that is because of their adjustability and being able to fit a lot of different types of folks. With the outriggers, the general concept with the outriggers is they're usually a little bit taller to start out with. As a person progresses and starts to what we call create more angles or more angulation and do some more dynamic skiing, this picture is a great example of someone who is a little bit higher level skier that is creating more angles. So as they become better skiers, a lot of times the outriggers will shorten a little bit. But other than that, the whole general concept of monoskiing and the type of ski that someone uses is not going to change as they become better skiers. They might just progress to a different type of monoski that works a little bit better for them. So that's monoskiing 101, basically.
Hey, Jeff, as
Yes.
far as the length of the skis, what would you recommend?
The length of the ski underneath?
Yeah, for a beginner.
So, for most beginners, what is nowadays called an all mountain ski is probably going to be their best option to begin with. So we want a ski that has a little bit of what we call side cut, and side cut is always designated by a meter radius. So if someone says it's a 15-meter radius, that means that there's 15 meters between when they start the turn and when they finish the turn. So we like to find a nice all mountain ski that has a good medium radius, what would be something between, say, 15 and 20 meters, and has some side cut to it. And that way, again, it helps with that person to learn how to begin to ski and how to use both their edges as well as the flat part of the ski to begin skiing. So, jumping on a really big fat powder ski or even a really short slalom racing ski is not always the ideal type of ski to begin with. So what most ski companies consider an all mountain ski, and somewhere in probably the 170 to 180 length is probably a good estimate to start with.
Okay, thank you, Jeff.
Yep.
Yes, you want to go ahead and talk a little bit about the outriggers?
Yeah, here we're going to get into the outriggers a bit more. And they come in various lengths and sizes depending on whether you're mono skiing, bi-skiing, or stand-up. And they adjust to the individual's needs. And here in this slide, we see some flip skis. And they have a pull cord, which you can pull to activate the flip ski, which in the down position, you can ski with it. And when it's in the up position, you can use it to stay steady and keep your balance and move around a bit better. And the outriggers are essentially helping the skier balance, come to stops. It assists with turning, getting on and off the lifts. And next we'll see these two styles of outriggers. They have fixed tips. This one on the left is a ball outrigger, which is more of an in-between outrigger for your handheld outriggers. It's easier to use if you don't have the grip strength or the mobility to use the pull string. So you don't have to worry about pointing the ski tip in any certain direction or catching an edge. And on our right, we have a tracer outrigger, and it is also a fixed tip, so it's not going to move. Essentially, for the tracer outrigger, all you have to do is point the ski in the direction you want to go, and it still allows for that dynamic level of skiing.
I'll throw in there, Gus. So that ball outrigger, so that's, most commonly used with bi-skis. And again, for maybe that person that is either transitioning between using fixed outriggers to using handheld outriggers, this is something that they might try. Again, the design and the reason that they developed something like this is kind of a in-between thing, like Gus mentioned. So if someone is transitioning to using handheld outriggers, this is something they can try to see if it is going to be something that they'd be able to do. And because it has the ball on there, it does not have the tendency to potentially catch in the snow if it accidentally gets kind of dragged behind them. So someone that doesn't quite have the great upper body strength can still use this as a balance point potentially to help initiate turns. And again, without worrying too much about that ski tip on the bottom and having that catch if they don't have the strength to keep it in the proper direction. That's what these ball outriggers were designed for. And they are they've only been around for a handful of years, and they've been a great tool to teach people to move from a fixed outrigger to a handheld outrigger. And then with the tracer, that's made by Tessier, the company that makes a lot of bi-skis and mono skis. And, there's other outrigger companies out there, and a lot of people have different designs. But every outrigger somewhat has a ski position and a crutch position. So even though these outriggers, the tracers, don't flip up, they have a little system on there that when you do have to stop or push yourself through the lift line and things like that, that there is a way to do that. They just don't have the flip up type of movement that the super light outriggers have to go from ski to crutch position. But they do have a way for people to keep their balance and to be able to maneuver themselves through lift lines.
Next, we'll get into stand-up equipment. Here we see a slider by Enabling Technologies. And sliders are essentially, like a standard walker with skis on it that adjust to the height of the individual. And sliders really help people with weakness in their lower extremities or have balance issues be able to stand while skiing. Essentially allows the skier to hold on or brace themselves as needed and to build more strength and to essentially build some balance skills, while they stand up and ski. And the sliders can be utilized with either alpine or Nordic. And they're typically tethered, or you can see in this left hand picture, there's some handles for instructors to either hold on to if the skiers doesn't need to be tethered. Some good examples of diagnoses and disabilities we see with sliders are individuals that have had strokes, amputations, TBIs, and our sliders bring us into 3-tracking and 4-tracking skiing. Here's some more examples of sliders and ski legs. On the left, we have a slider by Freedom Factory. And on the right, we have a pair of ski legs from Rad Adventures. Both help individuals stand up and ski, whether it's from a diagnosis or just weakness in their lower extremities or balance issues. And here we have some 3 and 4-track skiing. So individuals that are 3-tracking typically have 2 outriggers and 1 full-size ski, and they're leaving 3 tracks in the snow. And some diagnosis we see with 3-tracking is leg amputations, strokes, TBIs. And on our right, we have a 4-tracker, which uses 2 outriggers and 2 full-size skis, and they leave 4 tracks in the snow. And some diagnoses we see with 4-tracking is strokes, lower extremity amputations with prosthetics, lower extremity weaknesses, paraplegia, quadriplegia. And is there anything you want to add to that, Jeff?
As Gus mentioned, a lot of times the slider is used as a potential progression to 4-tracking or maybe even 3-tracking to using outriggers. Again, they, were designed back in the day. Some of you guys were around when we used to just buy a walker from the local medical supply store and screw it to a pair of skis, and that's what we used. I had the, privilege or luck of being involved when the first ski legs were built by Rad Ventures by a class up in Montana, and we tested them out. The concept I want to make sure people realize is, what we like to say is this was not developed as a stand-up bi-ski. So we are not, trying to just kind of prop people up in these and, have them kind of ski these things around and just kind of steer them around. The idea, the concept behind why they were built is that they're an extra support and that people can ski within the framework of these sliders or ski legs, and then the ski legs will follow along with them as an extra support system. So again, ideally, we don't want someone bearing all their weight onto these skis and having, say the person tethering them basically kind of steering them around. So this is something, again, that the folks are supposed to, use their skis within the framework of the slider, the ski legs, and learn how to, ski standing up with this little bit of extra support, with, again, the idea of potentially moving to handheld outriggers or, for a 4-tracker, potentially outriggers for a 3-tracker. Unfortunately, the ski legs and the slider are not something that somebody at this point is going to become completely independent in. These are always going to require somebody to help them get on and off the chairlift, as well as always having someone, tethering them and guiding them. Skiing these things independently is not normally something that folks will do. Obviously, I hesitate about saying that it never happens. But again, the idea is someone that moves from this to using outriggers. The main issue with that is safety concerns, is that these things do not have a very easy way of controlling their speed. So that's why, again, most of the time you will see someone being tethered in ski legs or a slider. So that is, the concept behind that. And hopefully, again, using it as sort of a stepping stone to 4-tracking or potentially 3-tracking. With 3-tracking, as far as the progression goes, it's very similar to monoskiing. Again, it's one ski with 2 outriggers, whether you're sitting down or standing up. The way that you're using the outriggers and using your body and everything is very similar. So there's a definite progression with 3-tracking. The equipment is, the ski is the same as everybody else uses. And then also the concept with the outriggers is the same with the mono skis as well. Somebody, just like anybody learning to ski, whether they're, a stand-up skier using no adaptive equipment or a 3-tracker, you're always going to start at a much taller position. You are not going to start skiing like you see some folks on the World Cup, where they're creating a lot of angles and things like that. We start off in a much more upright position. So the outriggers are going to be a little taller and have some break on them to begin with. As they progress in terrain and their abilities, then the brakes may shorten and the outriggers may shorten according to the type of angles they're creating and the type of terrain they're skiing. So that is, the way the progression really works with 3-tracking. Now, 4-tracking is a lot like bi-skiing. 4-tracking is going to very much depend on the person's ability levels and what abilities they have in either their legs or their hips or their upper body in order to create the movements that we'd like for them to do in order to ski. So again, depending on their ability levels, there's not a real clear-cut, say, progression on how someone's going to learn to 4-track. It's going to be very dependent on their personal ability levels and their personal, disability issues, basically. So with the outriggers, again, the sizing is going to be a little bit taller to begin with. But again, as you see, there's some 4-trackers that are on our Paralympic team that create a lot of angles in their skiing, and they ski a lot of different terrain. So they might have outriggers that are a little bit shorter and have less break on them. So again, no clear-cut progression with 4-tracking. It's going to be very dependent on the person's abilities and the way that we set them up in their equipment.
Hey, Jeff, do you want to talk real quick about visually impaired? And we've got about 3 minutes, a little over 3 minutes left.
Yeah, I
Gus can do the mandatory accessories.
Absolutely. I mean, visually impaired skiers, again, for the most part, obviously anybody that skis in any type of adaptive equipment could potentially have a visual impairment. So sticking with folks that stand up to ski and use skis and poles, okay, like you're seeing in the pictures here, the basic equipment for the skis and poles and boots are going to be the same as anybody else out there skiing. We have everybody wear bibs to identify them as visually impaired skiers, and that is, for not only for people, general public folks, to be able to identify visually impaired skiers out there, but also for the visually impaired skier potentially that is following a guide, that, someone that has some eyesight that can follow an orange bib is also a reason why you see our guides and our participants normally wearing some kind of bright colored bib, mostly orange. Sometimes they're a fluorescent yellow, but something that sticks out that people that do have an impairment, a visual impairment, can pick out of the crowd. And as far as the guiding part of it goes, most of the time you will see people being guided by voice commands. So, the guide saying left turn, right turn, stop, those basic commands. Some folks will use a headset, a radio headset that is very similar to folks that, say, ride motorcycles, that have that use headsets to communicate with other riders, people like that. They are not cheap, and they do take some time to set up. So they're not something that we use very often at the Winter Sports Clinic, unless the skier themselves have their own headsets because they do take, say, mounting into their helmet and setting up Bluetooth now with all that kind of stuff. But those are the most common ways that people are being guided. And then, as I mentioned before, some folks that do have some vision may also just follow their guide from behind, where there isn't a whole lot of voice commands happening, because they have good enough vision to be able to follow the person in front of them. So those are the main ways that folks are being guided. And again, keep in mind that a lot of people do have visual impairments that ski in monoskis or bi-skis or 3-track or 4-track. So these, sometimes are used in combination with other adaptive equipment.
All right, I'm going to chime in really quick as we're wrapping up this session. Thank you, Matt, Jeff, and Gus for running this session. We did have a couple questions come in, and we will be answering those questions post the session. Someone will reach out to you to answer the question as the questions are being recorded. Again, thank you, everybody, for taking the time to join. Thanks again, everybody, for joining. Thank you again, Matt, Jeff, and Gus, and hope everybody has a great rest of your day.
Thank you.